car, Tommy calls Eleanor Whitman, an attorney, about his conversation with the executive. Tommy is about to cross the street when he suddenly starts puking and, then, collapses. Louis Salinger, an Interpol agent, who waits for him across the artery, tries to attend to him but gets hit by a side mirror of a vehicle. Louis wakes up in a hospital and he immediately goes to see Tommy. At the morgue, the doctor tells him that Tommy dies of a heart attack, but Louis thinks otherwise. Checking Tommy's body, he discovers a prick wound in his nape. Meanwhile, at the district attorney's office in New York City, Eleanor is talking to her superior, Arnie, about the case she and Tommy is following when Louis calls to inform her that Tommy is dead. The scene changes to Federal Police Department in Berlin where Louis discusses to the police officials that Tommy's death is caused by murder. One official points out that with the nature of poison that Louis thinks got in Tommy's body, he must be poisoned when he stepped out of the car. Louis tries to remember the time he sees Tommy walking to him but couldn't remember someone who might do it. Then, another official asks why would Tommy be assassinated. Looking at each other, Eleanor reveals to the officials that the district attorney's office and the Interpol are investigating a bank that has financial operations associated with illegal activities. Louis continues to explain that 2 years ago, they received intel about the illicit activities of a bank based in Luxembourg named International Bank of Business and Credits. With Jonas Skarson as the chairman, the bank is the funding choice for organized crimes. After all the explanation they did, Louis and Eleanor get nothing, not wanting to believe mere theories, according to the official named Klaus Diemer. Then, at the Old National Gallery in Berlin, Wilhelm Wexler, one of the executives of IBBC, meets with the bank's consultant. Wilhelm tells him that Umberto Calvini disengages from the deal and he orders the consultant to execute him. Meanwhile, Louis is researching about the IBBC when he comes across an online article about the death of the IBBC executive that Tommy met before. At the Interpol headquarters, Louis tells his colleague Victor about the death of the executive and shows him the discrepancies in Jonas' statement. Louis wants to go to Luxembourg and questions Jonas, himself, but Victor stops him. Victor reminds him that their job is to gather intel and let the proper authorities enforce the law. But Louis is frustrated with the law because all their previous investigations about the IBBC always get into a dead end. The scene changes to IBBC headquarters where Louis sets up an appointment with Jonas. But he is greeted by the bank's legal counsel, Martin White, and Commissioner Vion of the Gendarmerie. Louis, then, discusses the discrepancies in the statement of Jonas, regarding the death of their executive, showing them the report. Louis caught Martin having a different statement from Jonas when calm. Vion checks the report. Putting up another copy of the report, calm. Vion tells Louis that what he has is S preliminary report and that the discrepancies he's talking about are just an error. Outside, Eleanor calls Louis and informs him that the doctors found cyanide in Tommy's blood, however, the volume is not high enough to be considered as poisoning. A woman, then, bumps into him. Thinking quickly, Louis checks his nape and attacks the woman, but apologizes right after. Meanwhile, we see Eleanor trying to contact the widow of the executive but she's not cooperating through the phone. Via text message, she tells Eleanor to speak with Umberto Calvini if she wants to know about the weapon deal of the IBBC. Then, we see Louis goes to Victor's house, informing him of the manipulation the IBBC executives did with Jonas' statement. He, then, storms inside Victor's place and breaks his home telephone, revealing a listening device inside it. Outside, Louis shows Victor all the listening devices he got in his home and Eleanor got them, too. Victor wants to report it to the Secretary General, but Louis emphasizes that if they raise an alarm right now, they will lose the opportunity to take down the bank. The scene changes to a man assembling a sniper rifle and shooting the target bullseye. Picking up the empty shell, he puts it in a small container. Then, we see a package gets handed to a police officer. Afterward, Eleanor arrives in Milan and is greeted by Louis and Inspector Alberto. Alberto accompanies them in their investigation in Milan. On their way to meet Umberto Calvini, it is revealed that Louis already investigated the IBBC case before and has solid evidence against the bank. Unfortunately, they turn the tide against Louis and he is forced to drop the case. Then, we see Louis and Eleanor questions Umberto about his deal with the IBBC. Umberto reveals that the IBBC purchased silkworm missiles from China that is equipped with the Vulcan guidance system. And in the whole world, only the Calvini Defense and Turkish Aerotech owned by Ahmet Sunay are the only producers of Vulcan technology. It turns out that Jonas wants the IBBC to be the exclusive broker of Chinese small arms to third world countries. Umberto also added that the IBBC's target is not the profit for selling arms, but to control the debt that the conflict will eventually produce. After their conversation, Eleanor convinces Umberto to help them take down the IBBC and he agrees to talk to them again after his speech at the political rally. Unfortunately, Umberto was assassinated after his speech. A culprit is apprehended, but the police that got the package earlier execute him. Then, he drops an empty shell at the crime scene. Meanwhile, Louis and Eleanor spot the bank's consultant and they follow it, but he escapes. The scene changes to Jonas talking to a general of the Revolutionary Freedom Front offering the bank service to provide them arms when a secretary approaches him. Excusing himself with the general, Jonas goes to other executives and they inform him that Umberto is dead, and they can continue negotiating with his two sons about the missile guidance system. Going back to Louis and Eleanor, Alberto tells them that the case had been solved and the Red Brigade is responsible for Umberto's assassination, but they know they didn't. Going to the crime scene, Louis and Eleanor investigate the bullet trajectory and discover a second sniper just placed above the other one. Seeing a print in a puddle of water, they have it examined and discover a similar print from an assassination case that Louis handled before. They found out that it is a custom-made shoe for a leg brace. Louis points out that the bank used the same assassin twice, meaning, if they get the assassin, they will get the bank. Suddenly, the police that killed the fake sniper arrives and scolds Alberto for continuing the investigation about Umberto's assassination. He also wants Louis and Eleanor out of Milan. The two decline, but it turns out that the police already talked to their superiors and they want them back. Then, in the airport, Eleanor gets an idea when she sees a man getting checked using a metal detector. Thinking that the culprit might need to show the security his leg brace that is made out of metal, they review the security footage. The two successfully got information about the culprit and proceeds to New York after knowing that the culprit flew there. Then, Louis and Eleanor are greeted by detectives Hubbard, Ornelas, and Ward. The five immediately discuss the information they have about the culprit. Afterward, Eleanor and Hubbard go to the office while Louis, Ornelas, and Ward will go to the Orthopedic Institute where the custom leg brace was made to investigate. At the DA's office, Eleanor is warned by Arnie that they only have one last chance to capture the culprit that will lead them to the truth about the bank's illegal activities, or he will have to put her out of the case. Then, in the Scarson residence, the executives inform Jonas that Louis and Eleanor are nearing the truth and they decide what to do with the consultant. The next day, Louis, Ornelas, and Ward are still at Isaacson Orthopedic Institute when they discover a suspicious record of a man that goes by the name of Gabriel Hansen. They follow the lead they got, but they end up in an empty lot. Hungry, Ornelas decides to grab food to eat when he sees the culprit walking past the store. Quickly telling Louis and Ward, they follow him into a museum where he meets with Wilhelm to talk about his new target. The consultant's new target is Louis. After seeing the old man leaves, Louis tells Ornelas to follow him while he and Ward keep an eye on the consultant. The consultant is about to leave when he sees them through a mirrored chandelier. With no other option, they try arrest him, but armed men show up and shoot the consultant and Ward, killing him. They are about to finish Louis when the consultant shoots them. It turns out that he is wearing a bulletproof. More armed men show up, and given the situation, Louis and the consultant team up. Unfortunately, the consultant is shot during the shootout and he dies while escaping with Louis. At night, Eleanor goes to Louis at the police station and helps him escape. Giving him some files, she drives him to the place where they are keeping Wilhelm. Louis convinces Wilhelm to help them expose and take down the bank. But Wilhelm emphasizes that they will never bring the bank down because the system that Louis vows to protect and fight both guarantees the safety of the IBBC. That is also the reason why no matter how Louis investigates the bank, he always ends up with nothing. Wilhelm then tells Louis that to take down the bank, he needs to get out of the system. Realizing that Wilhelm is right, Louis tells Eleanor that he will not repeat the same mistakes as before, that he lets the system bury down justice and decides to take the matters into his hands. Then, we see Martin White at the Calvini defense in Italy, waiting for the two brothers to show up. Instead, a group of men shows up and escorts them out of the building. It is revealed that Louis talks to the two brothers and reveals to them what the IBBC did to their father. Martin, then, is killed and never seen again. Afterward, we see Jonas with the IBBC executives discussing the situation with the Calvinis. With no other options, they decide to make a deal with Turkish Aerotech. Jonas, then, tells Wilhelm to call Sunay to meet with him the next day. In Istanbul, Jonas and Wilhelm wait for the funeral of Sunay's cousin to be finished when Wilhelm tells Jonas that he will go to the comfort room. There, he meets with Louis and gives him a recorder, and tells him that his plan is working. Louis plans to record Jonas and Sunay's conversation and will let the Iranians and Syrians know that the missiles from IBBC are useless against the Israelis. With that, they will pull out their order and the IBBC will collapse. Then, we see Jonas and Wilhelm meet with Sunay when Jonas requests to talk with Sunay alone privately. Entering an underground facility, the record feed gets weaker and Louis has no other choice but to follow them. Unfortunately, He is spotted by Sunai's guard who takes him outside. Jonas and Sunai's conversation ended, but Louis didn't manage to record the conversation he wanted. Pissed, he destroys the recorder. Meanwhile, Jonas is terrified to see Wilhelm seating but is already dead. Looking around, he sees Louis and he quickly gets out of the place. Following him, Louis gets the gun inside Wilhelm's jacket and follows Jonas through the market up to the roofs. With nowhere to go, Jonas faces Louis, who's pointing his gun at him, and tells him that even if he kills him, the system will just continue like nothing has happened. Louis hesitates to pull the trigger, but somebody shot Jonas. Pointing the gun at his head, the man behind him gets his gun and approaches the dying Jonas. After saying that the Calvini brothers sent him, the man finishes Jonas. He, then, thanks Louis and leaves.